Good evening, everyone present here. Good evening, everyone present here. Welcome the challenges, look for the opportunities in every situation to learn and grow wisdom. I would like to take this opportunity to place on record by welcoming you all for this virtual gathering. The harder you work for something, the greater you will feel when you achieve it. My genial welcome to our eminent chief guest, Dr. G. Swarnalakshmi, Professor and Head, Department of ELT, who is the woman of successful resource person. We welcome you, ma'am. Work hard in silence, but your success be the noise. It's my immense pleasure to welcome Dr. Saravanan R., our principal, Dr. Shakila Matthew, Dean Academic, Head Department of English, and Mr. Lokesh Kumar, Administrative Officer, who are all the optimistic personalities of VET Institution of Arts and Science. I feel happy to welcome the members of faculty and students. Once again, I welcome you all. Now I request Ms. Tahira from First Literature to invite our resource person.
Good evening, everyone. I am privileged to welcome Dr. Swaralakshmi, Professor and Head Department of ELT, School of Distance Education, the English and Foreign Language University, Hyderabad, Telangana, India. Her educational qualifications are postdoctoral fellowship in 2012, PhD in 2008, MPhil in 2003, PG Diploma in the Teaching of English in 1999, PG Diploma in Business Management in 2011. She has played the administrative duties in Deputy Chief Coordinator, International Training Programs, Academic Coordinator, PT and Deputy Director, Non-Formal Courses and Resources. She was a professor and head department of English and Humanities. Her achievements are in critical thinking in the language learning. She has working experience of 17 years in UG, PG, 1 year in Libya, and 3 years in school. She has many research interests and area of expertise. She wrote many research papers and presented 56 national and international conferences and seminars. And also, she published 26 research papers in national and international journals. She published and edited books. She has skills in learning. We are very grateful to have you here, ma'am. Thank you for your presence. Now I request Dr. Swarnalakshmi to take over the session.
Thank you, Ms. Monica and Ms. Tahira. Good introduction. I understand that you must be graduate students and you have done a good job. I thank the college to have invited me and particularly Professor Shakila, who was in touch with me for a long time and has planned for this session. Now, to start my talk, I am told that this is a graduate student lot. However, I would like to really take over from where the students are at present. My presentation will cover different concepts of critical thinking, why, what, and how of critical thinking will be the discussion in this session. However, something a little disappointing for me is that we'll not have any kind of interaction, nor any of the activities that I plan can be executed because there are no direct students. It's only live streaming happening here. So in that context, I would like to tell you that critical thinking is something which is required as a skill of today. When we talk about education, education is an area that allows all of us to get into the concept of gaining knowledge. But it is not viewed from the same point of view by everyone across the world. If you can give me 1 minute break. With information explosion to be one of the major problems of today, and the time that youngsters have in continuing to get educated and become experts in a particular area, something which is more challenging is how do you understand what information is appropriate and relevant to me. In that context, every educational institution across the world is moving towards making learners critical thinkers. What will this critical thinking do? If an individual is able to think critically, the individual will be able to differentiate between the existing knowledge, the knowledge or information that is cooked up, which is a temporary kind of one, and it will also allow knowledge to be internalized. If you are a critical thinker, you will be able to differentiate between facts and fakes. You will also be able to differentiate between how the knowledge that is available is useful or not useful to us. So, in this context, we will be looking at how to become critical thinkers, which will help us overcome all the problems that we encounter, particularly in academic contexts when you have lot of information that deviates us from the regular systematic learning. Now, critical thinking is a very broad term. You cannot define critical thinking in a very limited manner. You can't say this is the defined skill of critical thinking and this alone is critical thinking. So, to explain the vastness of this particular concept, I have put in only couple of sub skills of critical thinking. These are not the end. This is not a comprehensive list. Critiquing is not being critical or cynical about anything, but critiquing is looking at the positives and negatives of anything. You apply the knowledge that you have gained through your experience or education, analyzing, synthesizing, reflecting, communication, depth, mathematical scientific thinking, breadth of the awareness of any kind of knowledge or information that you have. Depth also is related to the same, related to the knowledge that you have on a particular concept. And accuracy, preciseness, consistency, relevance, sound evidence, frame of reference, objecting, reasoning, empirical grounding, conceptual thinking, assumptions, identifying the purpose, evaluating, synthesizing, and conceptualizing. These are, as I already mentioned, only a couple of things that critical thinking includes. So, to give a global kind of definition, we can say any conscious, goal oriented thinking is critical thinking. So, if you are supposed to become a critical thinker, you need to have a goal. You need to consciously observe the thinking process of your own mind and be very much aware of the biases that could be or any kind of preconceived notions that you have, which are influenced by your culture or your previous experiences. So once you're aware of this particular process of thinking and you start achieving any kind of goal, a simple thing like solving a problem or a bigger thing like becoming a successful leader, anything is possible if you are an appropriate critical thinker and become or make critical thinking a habit for you. Now, if you look at why do we need critical thinking today and why is that critical thinking is not so more important, say a couple of years ago, 2015 or 2010, we heard of critical thinking to be a higher order thinking skill, but we did not think about it to be part of education and a very important aspect that all of us have to really acquire. So look at the 10 top skills that the industry has listed in 2015 and how it has changed in 2020. In 2015, critical thinking occupied the fourth level, and emotional intelligence did not have any place in that. The highest order of thinking was complex problem solving, and the lowest order of thinking is creativity. But now in 2020, complex problem solving skills became the first skill or the topmost skill required. Critical thinking became the second, creative thinking became the third, people management became the fourth, which was third in 2015. And if you observe, there is no emotional intelligence listed as top skills in 2015, but emotional intelligence occupied the sixth position in 2020. Negotiation, which was considered to be one of the topmost skills, is ranked 5 in 2015, has come down to ninth rank now. Cognitive flexibility also did not have a place in 2015, but it started getting a position in 2020. So these are cognitive flexibility is nothing but making yourself flexible, acceptable to the ideas that are being presented by others, accept others' intelligence, and also cognitive flexibility talks about working together as a team to achieve some kind of goal. Okay, now these are the new skills that came into existence as part of the requirement, not just of one, two industries, but the whole world. Be it the industry of education, be it the industry of production, be it the industry of service, any business activity, anything that happens across the world required these set of skills as a prioritized or most wanted skills by any employer or an individual to survive and become successful. Now, why do we need to become critical thinkers? If you are a critical thinker, there are lots of advantages that you have. The first one is you can engage yourself in the learning process. Now, most of us have problems with learning anything that is given as part of the syllabus. So we hear from many of you that, ma'am, once I go home, I forget many of the things that my teacher said. As long as I was sitting in the class, I was thinking that I understood the concept, but the minute I came home, everything seems like a Greek and Latin for me. Or something more is interesting for me than what my teacher talks or teaches me as part of the curriculum, and these kinds of things are always there. I try and try, I struggle a lot, I repeat and try remember, but nothing happens to me. By the time it comes to examinations, I tend to forget because of fear of the exams. All these kinds of complaints in the learning process can easily be overcome if you become a critical thinker. How can this happen? Because if you are a critical thinker, you engage yourself in the process of learning. You become the person who processes the text rather than your teacher. It's not the teacher who teaches you. You only know that the teacher is trying to explain a particular concept, but it is you who needs to learn it. So how do we learn? If you plan for yourself a strategy, a way of learning things. You engage yourself with the process of thinking and understanding any kind of text. It becomes your process of learning, it becomes your learning, and it becomes your knowledge. It is not what the text says, it is not what the teacher says. So that makes you a critical thinker that ways. Learning itself is a problem in front of you. So if I have to learn something what this textbook says, say I need to learn one part of this unit, so how do I do it? I question myself. I plan a strategy. Now, I understand that after reading about 2, 3 paragraphs in the textbook, I understand that I do not understand anything from the text. If I read the textbook seems like Greek and Latin to me. I cannot understand anything. So, what do? I call up my friend. I make a visit to my friend's place and ask my friend to explain it to me. Or in case you don't have even that facility, you can call up your own teacher, have an appointment with the teacher, and ask your teacher to spend about 15 to 20 minutes to briefly explain the concepts. Now, this is an effort you are making to learn, which means you are engaged in the process of learning. You are trying to solve your problem of understanding a concept, and that itself is a problem solving strategy that you have designed for your own learning. And that is why critical thinking is very important for every learner and every individual. The second advantage of becoming a critical thinker is it enhances your learning abilities in general and language learning abilities in particular. Like if you look at one of your friends who has introduced me in the beginning, uh, she pronounced this word virtual. If you remember that, uh, it was slightly deviating from the normal way this word is being pronounced. Now, when I listen to this word virtual, not ritual, virtual, when I listen to this word, I start looking at, okay, how different is it pronounced? And I compare my pronunciation with a word which is pronounced by the dictionary. Say all your soft copies of the dictionaries or software dictionaries. If you click on the icon that shows a mic, it immediately pronounces the word to you and tells you that this is the way you need to pronounce a word. So I design my own strategies to learn anything that comes up, that I come across or that I'm expected to learn, and that enhances my learning abilities. Critical thinking also caters to any level or any background. I don't need to be already in an elite school, in an elite kind of atmosphere to become a critical thinker. The minute I start encountering any kinds of problems, and the minute I start resolving them myself by thinking about what can be the different ways I can solve this problem, this becomes my journey of learning, and that is what makes me critical thinker. So I don't need to have a great background, I don't need to have many teachers who are scholars, who are professors, who are philosophers who teach me critical thinking. It is my journey for myself that makes me a better critical thinker. The next one is makes learning process autonomous and supports lifelong learning. Now, if you are a teacher dependent student, if you want your teacher to continuously explain things to you, if you want your teacher to support you, if you want your teacher to pat you and say, nothing to worry, you will be able to learn this, then how long will the teacher be with you? Now, what skills were required yesterday are not the skills that are required today, is what we already discussed. So, if I am to learn new skills for my tomorrow's job, will my teacher be around? I'm not sure. So, in that context, you start learning all by yourself throughout your life for whatever skills that are required for your life and career. In that context, you become autonomous in the process of learning, and this autonomous learning will help you become successful throughout your life. And that is what I mean by saying supports lifelong learning. And of course, you are not dependent on your teacher because you start processing things all by yourself. The next advantage of critical thinking is learning tends to be permanent learning. Now, because I process everything, I analyze the text, I understand the text as I read it. I try to draw diagrams from what my text says. I give a different kind of representation of the text. Say, for example, the text is a long text. It seems to be really very tiring to read the text and remember things. So what do? I put it in the form of a flow chart, or I put it in the form of a diagram. And this diagram, when I look at it, immediately reminds me of all the text that I have read. So this kind of representation of the text is done by me, and hence it shows that I have processed the text a lot. When I process the text and give a different representation or a different format of the same text, and I create that format, there is no chance of me forgetting what happened when I learned this particular text, or what is supposed to be learned from this particular text. And in the process, what happens is you also tend to transfer the skills that you have learned in one context to another context. Now, I perceived the problem of learning, and this problem of learning is not confined to English, is not confined to mathematics, is not confined to physics. It is spread across all the areas that I am supposed to learn. That is how it becomes a transferable skill. So once I become a critical thinker, I become a critical thinker for all areas of my learning and also all aspects of my life. How do we develop critical thinking as a habit? Now let's look at this. It seems a very famous and common kind of philosophy that, or a joke that we all have encountered is uh, when an interviewee waited for his interview round, he became the last person to be interviewed by the interview board. There were almost more than 100 people who were interviewed that day. The interview board is also very tired. And this boy who was waiting for the interview also got really tired. The whole day he was waiting and waiting, and both the teams, that is the interviewer's team and the interviewee, both of them are really tired. So this boy happily pulls up all his energy, happily knocks the door and enters the room of the interview. The interviewers pleasantly greet him and ask him to sit down and very frankly tell him, see, we are really tired. We do not want to ask you many questions. Can you choose between these two? Do you want 10 easy questions or one hard question? And the boy who enters says, one hard question, please. And the question posed is, which one is first, egg or chick? The boy, without thinking for a minute, says it's egg. The second question that came immediately from the interview board is, how can you say that? And the boy says, my option is only one question. And that's how, because of presence of mind, the boy could get the job. It's not because whether he is right or wrong. So any kind of ability that you exhibit to be impressing for your audience becomes or makes you a good critical thinker. The boy there was able to resolve take a decision immediately on the spot whether 10 questions or one question. And he kept to his promise that he'll be answering only one question. He answered it. When he was asked the second question, he said, sorry, I don't want to take any more questions because my option is only for one question. That presence of mind in that particular point of time has made him successful in the interview. When you encounter so many things, each of the concepts that are being taught in different classes when you're doing a graduation, you generally tend to have pockets of knowledge. But if you are a person who can really connect one to another, you become an intelligent graduate or a specialist in a particular area of study. Now, if I am able to connect light, physics, and the light theory along with photosynthesis that happens to plants in the life sciences, along with the food diet that affects our health or puts us in a good or bad health. If you're able to connect all these, you will be able to lead a good life, a peaceful life, which is good quality of life as well in today's conditions. So what I'm trying to tell you is connectivity, if you're able to construct between the many knowledge pockets that are given to you, it becomes a mind map. You connect all these things and that becomes a mapping of ideas that you learn from different pockets or sources of information. And once you're able to do that, you automatically become a critical thinker. You try to have connectivity, you try to inform yourself about one particular aspect or concept from different realms of life, from different sources of information. The next way to become a critical thinker is to question. It is not what I need to learn today, but it is how should I learn this today. If you question yourself of how much do I have to learn today and how am I going to learn it today, that question will give you answers that will allow you to construct your own strategy to learn everything on your own. And another way of becoming a critical thinker is to continuously be in the process of floor crossing. Floor crossing is actually many colleges even conduct this competition of floor crossing. They say, okay, I give you this topic, you need to take two sides. You say yes, and you also say no to the same. And you need to argue from both the sides in a very logical way, in a very convincing manner. So if you start looking at the coin from both the sides, you also tend to understand everything from two sides. And that way of looking at things from different perspectives is what we call as heuristic thinking. You discuss everyday problems with critical kind of awareness. These problems seem to be very simple to be solvable, and these problems also seem to be something which are common to your life. And that is a courage that a critical thinker can build within himself or herself and become successful in life. In the learning context, in academic context, another major problem is related to the reading text. Now, if you were able to pose 3 questions to understand a text, the first being, what's the intention of the author? The second, what's the text doing to me? The third, what can I learn from this text? If these 3 are the questions that you pose every time you encounter a text, you will be able to understand the text at a higher level. It is not like what is the information presented in the first paragraph of the text, second paragraph of the text. It is more of what is the author trying to tell me, what is that I need to learn from this text. It's not related to bits and pieces of information that is given in the text as in the form of words. Now, it's easy to say, okay, become a critical thinker, start thinking like this, start thinking like that. But for that, you have lots of barriers. One of the basic barriers for critical thinking is being a very bad reader or a listener. If you're not able to focus very well on your listening skills when somebody is speaking, or if you're not able to concentrate well and comprehend a text that is given for reading, then it becomes a barrier for you. So every minute being conscious in and with 100% presence of mind is what allows you to be critical thinkers. And if you are not, you're passive, you only receive information from others and you don't react to it, then it becomes a barrier to critical thinking. The second one is biases and prejudices exist everywhere. Despite saying, see, I'm a very practical man, I'm a very scientific man, and all, still we have our own superstitions. Across the world, each pocket of the world has its own set of superstitions, has its own set of beliefs, has its own set of way of thinking and living. So these are actually part of our lives. You can't really run away from them. And that is why critical thinking is really necessary for all of us to get out of these biases. A very common kind of problem all of us have is related to our belief system. The belief system is particularly related to religion. Now, when I pray, my God, I'm telling you very clearly, my God is superior to other gods. So the way I do is a better way of praying when compared to other gods. This is what we call as a bias. Now I'm prejudiced. Whoever does not pray my God is not a very highly respectable person. And whatever the other person does in the process of praying is not the right one for me. This is what we call as a bias. You're tinted towards somebody else's ideas or thinking, and you do not have an appropriate way of overcoming the prejudices and biases. Similarly, you also tend to accept certain kind of superstitions, and these superstitions may make you get into an illogical kind of action. For example, in some cultures, yeah, date 13 is very inauspicious. In some cases, cat coming in front of you is very inauspicious. So certain kind of superstitions tell you that it is just your belief system. It's nothing to do with reality. Say, for example, in the Telugu states, the new moon day is a very inauspicious day. But in Tamil Nadu, the new moon day is a very auspicious day. So, how do you establish that a superstition or a belief of a particular society is a right one to be followed? Critical thinking helps you understand this. It's nothing to fight against anybody or establish that this is not right and this is right, but establishing this is fact and this is not fact is what a critical thinker can do very seriously. So, if you are not a critical thinker, you will not be an egoistic person. You also will not have the sociocentrism. What is meant by this? Now, India is my country. Yeah. And I am an Indian. I definitely need to love my country. That doesn't mean any other country is inferior to my country. That is what we call as not being sociocentric. But if you feel that my country is the best and nobody has so much of history of wisdom which my country has, then you're surely sociocentric. You're a person who believes that you are supreme and that you are incomparable in many ways. Now, another barrier for critical thinking is thoughtless conformism. Now, I would like to believe in BJP government and believe in Hinduism to be the superior kind of or the oldest kind of religion or ways of praying God. Then I have this thoughtless conformism. I conform, I stick to the ideas that are given by somebody else, which I'm not sure if I'm asked any kind of questions. I don't have any data with me. So, with some kind of data, with some kind of facts that are presented, if you believe in something, then that becomes a critical thinker's belief. But without that, if you conform to something, it becomes a barrier to become a critical thinker. Another barrier is your closed mindedness or your narrow mindedness. What are these? I'm not open to the ideas of others. I'm not ready to accept that others' ideas are also right. So in these two contexts, you have a problem, and those become your barriers to become critical thinkers. Overpowered by emotions. Sometimes, say you go hit your neighbor and come back. Your neighbor's mom comes and she complains. She says, "See, your boy is very naughty, and I think you need to teach him some discipline so that he is friendly with my child." But your mom, if you see her, she becomes very furious. "Your child must have irritated my boy a lot. Otherwise, my boy wouldn't have behaved like that." She'll very clearly give a very supporting kind of statement, which actually is not real. And that unreality is what we are calling as overpowered by emotions. Next is fear of change. Now I'm comfortable in the school that I go to, with the friends I have around, and I'm comfortable with what is happening in my life. Why should I go for a change? If you fear change, there is no progress. Say, what happened to our parents? What were the conditions of learning for our parents? If that does not sound, disturb out the sound. If I'm not able to change myself, there is no progress. And that not having any kind of progress is what we call as a fear of change. Peer pressure is another one. Now, somebody else of my class has done something, so let me also do. You don't think whether it is right or wrong. I admire or like my friend a lot. My friend has done this, so let me also do. Somebody has dared to bunk the classes and go and watch a film during this pandemic period. Then let me also go and have that fun. That is real fun at this moment. So all these become a great obstruction to become critical thinkers. You should not go by the trend. You should stop and think for yourself what you're doing, whether it is acceptable, not acceptable as per the social norms or as per you as an individual norm. Each of us have our own belief system, though we live in a family. It is not just that we blindly go with our family. When you can say no to your mom and dad, and you want to have reasons for what your parents have asked you to do, then definitely it is the same for you. It applies for you as well. It applies to you in the sense that you are supposed to explain to your parents why you did something or why you want something. And that should have a reason, not because my friend has, so let me also have an expensive bike. My friend comes by car, so you better go by my bike and I better go by your car, dad. So this becomes an illogical kind of pressure that you are giving to your parents when you demand for reasons. When it comes to parents instructing you, you will also have to give the same reasons to your parents for your preferences, for your requirements that you put as demands to them. Now, let's look at this. There is a small activity here. Take 2 minutes time. Look at all the things that are presented here. There are 12 things on the page. Now, after a minute, if I change this, how many of you remember what is that in the on the page? What is that which is given as a picture on the page? I'm sure most of you remember not less than 5 to 6 of them. Maybe the first one I think is a bird. I vaguely remember something like a bus. I think there is a bat and a ball on the screen and things like that. We are not very sure, but visual thinking and visual memory is very important for us to become critical thinkers, which means what you observe is conscious observation. Like most of you must have known the difference between what is listening and hearing. Hearing is something which comes to our ears. All the outside kind of disturbances that we have are what I am doing here is only hearing. But if you are given a chance to open your mouth and then unmute your mic and speak to me, and when you talk to me, what I do as an action is listening, not hearing. Similarly, any thinking that happens in your mind should always be conscious. You should direct your thinking. You should be able to capture everything that comes across your ears or your eyes has to be processed by you thoroughly. Any information for that matter. And once you process that information, it becomes your strength. That becomes your very, very unique kind of ability you have. And if you look at the picture now, once again, yes, there is a summer vacation, there is some kind of bird, there is some homework that is painting to be done. There is an egg, there is an airplane, there is a sunglass. Now, if you look at actually the birds, the objects that are given here are not named properly. Say a US dollar, a coin is given here, but beside it, the name is study. Say there is a homework should have a book, but there is a painting brush and painting tray. There is a bird, but below that it is written as summer vacation. So there are different articles, different words that you need to remember. Look at the words and the objects. Now, if you think about what are the words, what are the objects that I have seen here, if your attention is drawn towards the difference between the words and the objects, and you need to differentiate these two while giving the list of things you remember as words and objects, then you pay attention to the same. And that is where you will become a conscious thinker and become a critical thinker. A fact and opinion, these are two things, these are not the same. A fact is something which is established, which is proven, and which is also true. There is nothing like false about a fact. And an opinion can have number of things which can be objectionable. This is just my opinion, I'm very sure all the students in Tamil Nadu are very intelligent students. So this becomes just my belief. It cannot be something which is permanently a fact for everyone. Now, once upon a time, the European countries were the rulers of the rest of the world. The French, the German, the Portuguese, the British, everybody had colonies across the world. They were ruling, they were doing all kinds of businesses, with every country that is possible. And today, do you think Europeans are the same intelligent people to rule the rest of the world? Nobody agrees to that. Nobody accepts that. The reason is Europeans are now, as the statistics go, the oldest kind of generation people across the world. So, is there a chance for us to really look at Europeans as the most intelligent people today? It was once upon a time fact, of course, but is it the same fact for us to accept today? No. So facts keep changing sometimes, and you need to understand that the changing phase of the fact is also to be acceptable. The next one is opinions. Opinions also keep changing from time to time. You find a person to be very bubbly, very innocent when you encounter the person for the first time, and you come back and say, "Mom, I met a very interesting, enthusiastic person." But this person, is very open, very friendly, and I feel he's very amicable, and I think I should make him my one of my good friends. But after a few days, when you keep observing this person who is very inconsistent in his behavior and talk, you come back and say, "Mom, I thought this person was so and so then, but I don't believe the person to be the same today." So, this change in the opinion is always there, but change in the opinion is faster than change in the fact. For example, my opinion of a person can change as frequently as within minutes, sometimes within hours, within days. But a fact like, let's say, Earth, let's take Earth. Earth was believed to be a flat table kind of land once upon a time, even before Copernicus and Galileo. Now, without Galileo, we could have never known that Earth is a globe. So later, people believed that okay, Earth is a globe, and Earth rotates and revolves. But where did we get this concept called sun rising in the east? We all believed and we all learned in our present simple present tenses. The first kind of example given to us is sun rises in the east. This is a fact. But does really sun make any change in its position? It is the earth that that revolves around the sun, and rotation of the earth is what gives you day and night. In that context, facts and opinions keep changing from time to time. You will have to be the person who decides who is right, who is wrong, and what is fact and what is opinion from a given text or a context. So, fact can be proven either as a true one or a false one. An opinion is an expression of feeling or a point of view. An example for this is he dropped me at school and left for his work. Sorry, it has to be he dropped me at school and left for his work. If it is dropping me, who must be this person he? who could this person be? This person could be my father, my brother, my boyfriend, my husband, my teacher, my neighbor, my friend's father, my friend, my brother. It can be anybody. So the he here is just an opinion. But the fact is, I'm being dropped by somebody at the school. So each and every statement that we make, we encounter every day in our life, calls for lots of understanding, interpretations, but the fact remain to be the fact there. So we'll have to be very conscious about the inferences and interpretations that we make related to any source that gives us information. We experience this across our country. We already started looking at our media to be the media which is already biased. So if you're watching one particular channel, you know that this person is, or the channel owner is a supporting person of a particular political party. And what kind of facts can you expect from that TV or that particular channel? You cannot expect anything to be very fair and to be very open, to be neutral from a person of that cadre. So, news and media have become places or the channels of information that we cannot completely trust. Okay, so what is fact that is being presented in this particular channel and what is the opinion that is being presented in this channel? Both are totally different. They're not one and the same. What we are encountering in our everyday life is what makes us critical thinkers, because there are facts in what happens, and there are lots of opinions, what we call as the masala that is being added to the news that is given, or to an incident that really happened in somebody's life, or in general something happened in a government. Now, as students, the first kind of skill that you need to acquire is to ask the right question. This is what we call as a Socratic questioning. Socrates, the Western philosopher of times immemorial, is a person who was believed to be a great philosopher who taught everyone how to question, how to raise questions. When he questioned the authority, he was given the punishment of having poison and being killed. So that was not acceptable then, but that is acceptable today. We can question power. Power is not unquestionable. And when you think the power or the government or the head of any institution is trying to impose something, you have all rights given to you as a citizen of the country to question the wrong deeds of the person. And that is also something which we have to do when we are learning anything from a textbook or from any other source. So anything that you learn, if you start with questions, your Q&A session itself will give you a number of answers. So once I pose the right question to myself, I also have the ability to answer that question. And that makes me thorough in my reading. Because by then, to frame a question itself, I must have gone through the text 2 or 3 times. Okay, this I think is the right question to pose Madam tomorrow in her class when she asked me to pose a question. So when you make that decision, it also means that you are in the right direction of questioning, and you are able to go through the text, process it a lot, then frame questions which you felt makes the crux of the text. So, questioning and rightly questioning related to the right aspect of learning is always welcomed, and that makes you one of the best critical thinkers. You'll also need to have inquisitiveness to learn. It is not because my teacher told me I need to learn this, but why should I really learn? How should I really learn? If you pose questions and start answering them, you will become a very good critical thinker. And as already mentioned, the right questions is rightly questioning is also rightly learning. And the more questions, the more thinking you generate. The questions are not supposed to be posed to the teachers, it is questions to be posed to yourself in the process of learning. Now, look at this multiple perspectives. What does the picture really say? The picture says, actually, let me tell you the behind story of this particular picture. There are a group of blind people who wanted to see an elephant. So, a gentleman who wanted to help them out brought an elephant in front of them, asked them to feel and explain or define or describe elephant as they experience it. Now, see, each of them is explaining elephant from a different, from their point of view. I shouldn't say it's something right or wrong, but that is how they started defining it. One of them went and touched the tusk of the elephant. The tusk is very sharp, so he said it is like a spear. The next one went and touched its trunk. The trunk is very soft and it looks long without any kind of bone. So he immediately said, "This is a snake. It looks like a snake." And the other person went up, sat on the top of the elephant and touched its ears. So for him, the ears are soft and they look like they seemed like fans. Another person is given a ladder. He went up and touched the elephant, and then he defines it as a wall, because that is a hugeness of an elephant, and he is not able to distinguish or find out what other parts look like. As it is, he is not able to see. So this limitation he had, and this is how he described it. He said it's a wall. Another person went and touched or hugged its leg and said, "Oh, it seems more like a tree." And that's how the elephant also looked like a tree. And the last one who went and touched its tail said, "It looks more like a rope. It's a rope." What is elephant? Elephant is a rope. For him, it is a rope. Now, who is right of all these if you question? Of the 6 people who went and touched the elephant and tried to define it, of all these people, who is that who is completely right and who is that who is completely wrong? There is nothing of that sort. Each of the persons was looking or touching the elephant from his or her own perspective, and they were able to define from their own point of view what did they experience as elephant to be, and that is what they gave as definition. As critical thinkers, something which we have to do without fail is to be open to different perspectives. Okay, what I know or what I understand about something might be my perspective with my kind of experience I have. But when it comes to reality, it is like looking at the whole thing. It is not one particular one, but it is looking at the whole thing. The whole thing should help you. That is, a comprehensive understanding of any kind of concept will help you not to get into conflicts with anyone, will not suggest any kind of victory over others. It is just being trying to look at the other side of the coin. And that is all what we mean by multiple perspectives. Now, another aspect of assimilating information for any individual is to look at this cause-effect relationship. We already looked at this question, egg or chick, and the person said egg is first, and there was no answer from him. So let's look at it from a cause-effect relationship. A cause is why something happens, and an effect is the result of a cause. The king died in the battlefield and the queen died. If these two are two events that happened in a kingdom, generally we tend to relate queen's death to the king's death. Why? Because of the order of the information that is given. The king's death is the information that is first given to us, followed by the queen's death. So because of this order of information, we assume that the king died first and the queen died later. And the reason for queen's death must be the grief because of the king's death. And what all we are trying to relate these two to and also analyze these two statements is all what we call as another perspective, an opinion that is expressed. These are not facts, because fact is only that two people died. One died in the battlefield, the second one's death is not, place of death is not known to us. Now look at the second statement. Our plane was 2 hours late taking off from New Delhi. There was a heavy snowstorm that day. So where is the snowstorm? In New Delhi. It must be in New Delhi, and that is why New Delhi flight took off 2 hours late from the scheduled time. Critical thinking in education field also is related to identifying flaws in logic. What does that mean? Now let's look at some kind of facts and how these flaws can happen in the logic that we construct. The first statement says there are less number of girls in mechanical engineering class. The second fact is there are more number of girls in computer sciences engineering class. These are two different statements that are talking about the strength of boys and girls in two different branches of engineering. Now moving on, what is the data that tells you that there are more number of girls and more number of boys in a particular branch? For the past 7 years, this college has similar kind of admission into the two branches. That is, for computer sciences, it's more of girls, and for engineering, mechanical engineering, it is more of boys. So I conclude saying, hence universities should restrict girls opting for mechanical engineering, and they should be giving more chance for boys in that branch, and similarly for boys in the engineering, in the computer sciences engineering. Because boys are less, boys should not be allowed to enter computer sciences engineering. Because girls are less, girls are not allowed to step into step into mechanical engineering. So that is a conclusion which is full of flaws. Why? One college, 7 years of information. Engineering education is not born in India just 7 years ago. And there are 6,200 odd colleges across the country in engineering education. So which one are you talking about? How can I make myself sure that what you gave as information and what you gave as reasons are the right ones? And that is where our conclusion also will be full of flaws. What we conclude and react to will not be the right one attributed, or the right opinion attributed to the fact. Very interesting kind of one as a theory was proposed by Edward de Bono, who is a European scholar, who talks about 6 thinking hats that can be that the children or students can be trained in wearing. It's not literally the hat that you wear, but it is the way that you think related to the hat. So the 6 thinking hats had 6 different colors. The first color is white. The white hat is for looking at facts. The yellow hat is looking at values and benefits. The blue hat talks about the procedures that are to be adopted. The red hat talks about the emotions that are involved. The green hat talks about the innovative or creative ideas that can be implemented. Finally, the black hat, as the color itself says, is not good enough to support facts. So black hat always gives negative kind of feedback regarding any information that is to be processed. Critical thinkers, some traits to become critical thinkers is this. The first one, despite all your thinking, never be very arrogant. You should be humble, but you should also be courageous. Courageous to question what is wrong, and humble to accept somebody is greater than you. Open to learning and to others' ideas and perspectives. Now, I should be ready to learn, and the others' ideas are also some things that I need to learn from others. So, that openness is also part of being critical thinker. Inquisitive learning. I do not learn just from what the text says, but I also explore what the text says in the process of learning, and that learning makes my learning permanent. It becomes an inquisitive learning because I explore, I design my own strategies of learning, I become successful. That is how I become a permanent learner. And what is learned also stays in my long-term memory. I will not forget easily. Every problem has a solution is one way of looking at the problems. And once I know there is a solution, I definitely will work with a lot of enthusiasm to reach that solution. Analyze before you apply. You need to analyze any kind of concept before you think it is applicable in a different context. Synthesizing learning, you put everything together, and as I was telling you, you need to start linking your ideas of learning from one pocket of knowledge to another, that is from one subject to another. Conscious and cautious judgment. Okay, when I say something is right, you can go ahead, this is the best idea. You will also be you should also be conscious. You cannot just like that be biased and say, okay, this sounds very interesting, please go ahead. And tomorrow you look at it and say, who gave you the approval? That's not the way. Once you're conscious, you give any or make any statement with 100% of your cognitive awareness and your presence, you will not go wrong. So your judgment will be the right one. Similarly, if you're cautious of the results when you take a wrong decision, then you will not dare to take a wrong decision. And that is what is meant by conscious and cautious judgments. Finally, I'm sure this is turning two big dose of being critical thinkers for you. I'll quickly close. This is the last slide. Don't worry. So let me tell you the standards to be maintained by critical thinkers. The first one is clarity. The second is accuracy, precision, relevance, depth, breadth, logic, significance, and fairness. Not all are applicable to you as students, but one thing which is required by you is clarity, accuracy, logic, and fairness. Of course, relevance is something related to you. Breadth and depth of any kind of knowledge is also related to you. Now, if you want to be a good critical thinker, you need to maintain all the standards given here. You shouldn't turn envious about somebody who has got a greater score than you, who has got a greater rank than you. Not of that sort. That is not how to become critical thinkers. What you are supposed to maintain as a standard for yourself is you are not being disturbed by others' achievements. You are disturbed by your own achievement. And that is one of the most important standards that each student has to adopt. The second one is how fair is uh, is your thinking when it comes to a particular concept. Are you open? Are you welcoming to the other's perspectives? In that context, you become a standard critical thinker, and that makes your critical thinking abilities on a very high level or places them at a very high level. Thank you all. With that, I close my presentation. And if you have any ways of thinking or telling me how your critical thinking can really help you become a better learner, you're always welcome. And to be a critical thinker is to be a different person, and you should dare to be different. Thank you all.
That was the wonderful session, ma'am. Now we go for the Q&A session. Now we are having a first question, ma'am. How does interpretation plays a vital role in critical thinking?
Interpretation is generally based on the person's personal experiences. It is not dependent on the fact. So, interpretation can be different from different persons, from the same person from different ways. Hence, it is not part of critical thinking. It is only your ability to analyze a text with your own background knowledge or experiences that you have.
And the next question was, how to develop critical thinking as young learners, ma'am?
Have to develop critical thinking. That is what I kept on telling you. No, anything, everything that you encounter as a text to be learned, as a concept to be learned, or any kind of issue that comes your way to understand, to learn as a knowledge, to acquire as a knowledge, you need to be conscious. You need to start questioning yourself. You also need to think about different ideas that contributed to this particular fact. If you're able to do that, you can become a good critical thinker. However, at the same time, you will also have to accept others' views, be open to others, and you will also have to respect others' perspectives. That makes you a humble critical thinker, which is the best quality of a critical thinker.
Thank you, ma'am, for answering all the questions. Students, the link for the attendance has been posted in the chat box.
It is now my pleasant duty to propose a vote of thanks on behalf of the institution and myself. I express my sincere gratitude to Dr. Swanalakshmi, our resource person, for sparing her valuable time to be with us this evening. I also thank Dr. Saravanan, our principal, Dr. Shakila Matthew, Dean Academics, Mr. Lokesh Kumar, Administrative Officer, for their enormous support for this guest lecture program. My sincere thanks to our members of faculty for their guidance and support. and I extend my thanks to my dear friends and fellow students for their enormous cooperation in making this lecture a great success. Thank you, everyone.
Thank you, Miss Tahiba, and also Miss Monica once again for all the talk and questions. Have a great day. Practice critical thinking. You will become great learners.
Yes,
Bye-bye.
ma'am. Sure, ma'am.
May I leave the